Hello friends, welcome to this new video. Let's study UPSC with real arts and let's include real arts in education. Okay? In the first chapter of Indian polity, before reading about the different acts brought by the British in the historical background, we are reading about the British and things related to them so that we can understand these acts in a better way. Okay? In today's video of historical background, we will talk about why the British took so long time to come to India even after getting the charter. Okay? When the British come to India, which ruler were ruling India at that time? Where did the British establish their first factory in India and how did they succeed in opening these factories in India? Okay? What efforts were made for this? Where and with whose permission and when was it opened? We will see that after establishing its first factory permanently, how the East India Company started expanding its business rapidly in India. Where else in other places did they establish their other next factories? Friends, we will also see when the British got monopoly in the trade of China and tea. We will understand more things in the upcoming videos. Okay? Before this friends, I have a small request for all of you. If you have not subscribed to this channel, then please subscribe this channel and press the bell icon also so that you can get our other videos like this first. Because friends, it takes a lot of hard work to make such videos, and if you do not support those who work hard in the right direction, then whom will you support? Also, share this video with as many people as possible friends. So friends, let's start this historical background. So friends, as we read in our previous videos that the East India Company came to India by sea, and about 8 years after getting the charter, that is on 24th August 1608, the first ship of the East India Company reached Surat port of India for trade. Friends, the name of this British ship that reached Surat port was Hector, which was led by Captain William Hawkins. William Hawkins came to India at this time as the first diplomatic representative of the East India Company. That means, on this day, the British East India Company came to India for the first time for the purpose of doing trade. And from here began the real game of the British rule. Friends, now the question arises here is that the British had already received the royal charter on 31st December 1600 by Queen Elizabeth I of England, which gives the East India Company the monopoly to trade in India and eastern countries. But why did the British take so long time to come to India? So look friends, the reason why the British were so late in coming to India is because dominance of other European powers. At that time, before the British came to India, other European traders like Portuguese and Dutch had already come to India through the sea and were doing trade in India. The Portuguese reached India in 1498 under the leadership of Vasco da Gama, and the Dutch came after the formation of the Dutch East India Company in 1602. Apart from this, Arab traders had already established their foothold in Indian trade, and they were active on the west coast of India for centuries. The Portuguese were already dominating the sea routes since the discovery of the sea route discovered by Vasco da Gama, and they tried their best to stop other European powers including the British from coming to India. However, their efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. At this time, the Portuguese were doing good business in India as compared to other European companies and were also ahead in trade. For trade competition from other countries, the Portuguese did not have any other power in India except the Arab traders and the Dutch. At this time, Indian rulers like Marathas, Mughals, etc. were also very powerful at the local level. That is why the Portuguese East India Company never wanted any other new company to come to India and compete with them in trade. Moreover, the second reason of this was permission and financial support. Before coming to India, the company also took a lot of time to attract investors in England and raise sufficient financial resources. The third reason of this was challenges of sea routes and navigation. At the same time, the British also had technical challenges related to sea routes and navigation. The sea route from Europe to India was so long and very difficult. At that time, shipbuilding and navigation technology was not so advanced, which made the journey long and full of risk. And the fourth reason of this was finding safe trading opportunities first. At the same time, the British first started looking for safe trade opportunities. Instead of coming directly to India, they first looked for trade possibilities in Indonesia, Persia, or what we call Iran today, Arabia, and other eastern countries. Well, a little late, but the British had now reached India, friends. Now let's talk about which ruler were ruling India when the British came to India. What did the British do to establish their first permanent factory in India? When the British came to India, friends, at that time India was ruled by the Mughals. The British used to win the hearts of the local rulers of India by cajoling them or making them happy in any way, by giving them gifts or greed, by winning their trust so that the local rulers of India would allow them to stay safely in their areas, build factories and do business. When the British came to India, India was ruled by the Mughal Emperor Jahangir at that time. He was the Emperor of India from 1605 to 1627 and the fourth Mughal Emperor of India. The Mughal Empire was the most powerful and prosperous empire of India at that time. The British wanted to establish their permanent trading factory in Surat within this most powerful and prosperous Mughal Empire of India, because Surat was a major trading port of the Mughal Empire. This port was rich and very convenient for maritime trade and was strategically important as well. In 1609, William Hawkins landed from his ship Hector and reached Agra directly at the court of Jahangir. He asked Jahangir for permission to open a factory in Surat, but he failed to get permission to open a factory in Surat. The British were a bit worried about this, but still they continued their efforts. The British informed the then ruler of Britain, James I, about this and said that the Mughal Emperor Jahangir is ruling India and he is not giving us permission to set up a factory in Surat. Friends, it was very important for the British to set up a factory in India, because just think, how would they have been able to do trading without a factory? Where would they have kept the goods bought from Europe and taken to Europe? That is why the King of Britain, James I, sent another British ambassador, Sir Thomas Roe, to Jahangir's court in 1615. He stayed there till 1619. Thomas Roe, through his skillful diplomatic moves, right timing, and better proposals, succeeded in getting permission from Jahangir to build a factory in Surat. And thus, friends, the British got permission to do trade in India. Mughal Emperor Jahangir did not allow William Hawkins to open a factory in Surat, while later Sir Thomas Roe got this permission. There were many political, diplomatic and strategic reasons behind this, friends. Let us now know these reasons. First of all, let's talk about why William Hawkins did not get permission. The first reason for this was the influence of Portuguese. Friends, at that time, the trade influence of the Portuguese was very strong in India. They had already established their presence in places like Goa, Diu and Daman. The Mughal rulers at that time saw the Portuguese as a maritime power. The Portuguese had good relations with the Mughals and they had done negative propaganda against the British in front of the Mughals. The second reason was the weakening of the military power of the British. Friends, the British were in the process of becoming a trading power at that time, while the Portuguese already had a strong navy. Jahangir did not want to give permission to the British and get into enmity or hostility with the Portuguese. The third reason for this was, friends, the behavior of William Hawkins. William Hawkins was successful in building close relation with the Jahangir, but not everyone in the Mughal court was impressed by his efforts. He could not even speak the Persian language properly, which caused difficulty in diplomatic talks. And the fourth reason was, friends, high court oppositions. Many high officials in the Mughal court had taken bribes from the Portuguese and were in their favor and were advising and instigating Jahangir against the British. So friends, these were some of the reasons due to which William Hawkins did not get permission from Jahangir to build a factory in Surat. Okay? Now let's talk about what the British did after William Hawkins failed. So friends, when William Hawkins failed to get the permission from Jahangir for establish a permanent factory at Surat, the British changed their strategy and started looking for new ways to create a business base for themselves in India. In 1609, Captain Middleton came to India, but he also did not get permission from the Mughal Empire. After this, friends, in 1611, the British opened their first temporary factory in Masulipatam, which is in Andhra Pradesh, which was not under Mughal control. Rather, it was under the Sultan of Golconda. This factory was outside of the Mughal Empire because the Mughal Empire did not have complete control over South India. This factory opened with the permission of the Sultan of Golconda because at that time the Mughal Empire did not have complete control over South India. In 1612, the British won the Battle of Surat, that is the Battle of Swali, against the Portuguese. This increased their influence, and the Mughals felt that the British could also become a naval power. The British defeated the Portuguese in the Battle of Swali in 1612 on the coast of a place called Swali near Surat. Okay? This naval battle took place on 29 to 30th November 1612, in which the boats of the British East India Company defeated the Portuguese naval power. This victory made the Mughal Emperor Jahangir estimate the sea power of the British, and the Mughal gained confidence in the sea power of the British, due to which they became favorable towards the British. However, they did not immediately get the official permission to open a factory in Surat. But after the Battle of Swali in 1613, Jahangir allowed the British to trade in Surat temporarily. Friends, this was not a permanent decree but a temporary consent given by the Mughal authorities. Under this, the British could set up their temporary factory in Surat and do business. Now, although temporary permission to trade was granted in 1613, friends, but the problem was that it was still not permanent, and the Portuguese still had influence over the Mughal officials. The British made continuous efforts to make this permanent and uproot the Portuguese. Apart from this, the British wanted to do extensive trade all over the India. The Mughal Empire was the largest, richest and most powerful empire in India at this time. The British wanted a permanent and formal permission from Jahangir to trade in other places in India and set up factories there too. Friends, now let's talk about how did Sir Thomas Roe get permissions from Jahangir. In this effort, in 1615, King James I of England sent Sir Thomas Roe as the official British ambassador to Jahangir's court. He used impressive diplomacy and understanding in Jahangir's court. Friends, Thomas Roe was a very experienced diplomat. He had learned Persian language very well and understood the policies of the Mughal court and talked to Jahangir. The British had already defeated the Portuguese in the Battle of Swali in 1612, friends. This led to the weakening of the Portuguese power in India and the seas, which was till now at its peak. Okay? This made Jahangir believe that the British were also a powerful maritime power. Thomas Roe also made a profitable trade proposal for the Mughals. He assured the Mughals that the British had come to India only for trade, and that they were not a threat to the Mughal rule in any way, nor would they ever be. The Mughal rule would never face any problem because of them. Thomas Roe also developed good relations with Jahangir. He gave valuable European gifts to Jahangir and he regularly praised Jahangir in Jahangir's court. He also explained to the Mughals the potential benefit of trade with the British, due to which he succeeded in winning Jahangir's trust. As a result, in 1619, Jahangir gave formal permission to the British to establish their first permanent factory in Surat and to open factories and do business in other parts of the Mughal Empire. This year, the British received extensive trade rights from the Mughals, which further strengthened their expansion in India. This decision later became the foundation of the trade and political dominance of the British in India. Friends, the first permanent factory of the British East India Company was established in Surat in 1613, but it got legal recognition in 1619. After establishing a permanent factory in Surat, the East India Company started expanding its business in India rapidly, and trading posts and factories were opened at different places. After Surat, the British opened factories one after another in Ahmedabad in 1619, Brahmapur in 1620, which is in now Odisha, Agra in 1621, Madras in 1639, Hooghly, which is in Bengal, in 1651, Bombay, that is Mumbai, in 1668, and Calcutta Fort William in 1690. These factories later became the basis of British power in India. By 1647, the British East India Company had set up about 23 factories in India. The Britishers used these factories as trading posts or warehouses. They used to collect Indian textiles, spices, tea, indigo, silk and other trade goods and store them here and take them to Europe from here. Apart from this, goods bought from Europe like woolen clothes, wine, metal items, etc. were also stored in these factories. Friends, the Britishers also used these factories as military bases for their security. Later these were gradually converted into forts by the Britishers like Fort St. George, Fort William, etc. Initially, these factories were only trading centers, but gradually the Britishers started increasing their military power in them, and in this way they gradually converted these factories into forts. Among these, the prominent ones were Fort William in Calcutta, Fort St. George in Madras, and the Bombay Coastal Fort in Bombay. Now friends, let's talk about when and how did the British get monopoly in China and tea trade. In 1698, the British Parliament confirmed the rights of the company. The company got the privileges of trading tea, silk, porcelain, and other precious goods from China, due to which it becomes the only authorized British company to trade in India as well as China. However, this monopoly of the company on China trade remained till the Charter Act of 1833. Actually, the British East India Company initially had complete monopoly of trade in India, China, Southeast Asia, and the Persian Gulf. But as the administrative and business corruption of the company increased, the British government gradually ended its monopoly. The monopoly of trade in India ended in 1813. And in 1833, the company's monopoly was also removed from China and tea trade. After the Charter Act of 1833, the East India Company became an administrative body, but its trade monopoly was abolished. After this, other British private traders were also allowed to trade tea and other goods with China. So that's all for today's video, guys. In the next video, we will see how the British used to trade between India, China and Europe. What things did they trade? What did they bring from Europe to India and China? And what goods did they take from India and China to Europe? Along with this, in our next video, we will also see which wars did the British fight in India? Which presidencies did they create in India? What was the condition of Bengal at that time? We will read about all these things in detail in our upcoming videos, friends. Okay? If you like our video, please like it and give your opinion in the comment box. Also, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon also, so that you can get more such videos first. Thank you for listening to us. See you in the next video. Until then, bye bye and take care. Thank you.